That's dope, man. What have you been up to lately? Watching The Wolf of Wall Street?
Um, yeah. I mean, it's you know what? It's a funny poster to have as as a spiritualist. I like bits of the movie as a business pertinent person in terms of um, just the excitement of growth, etc. But honestly, I just love that scene.
Dude, I've never even seen it. Is The Wolf of Wall Street? That's like, was that a remake? The one that came out a couple years ago? Is that like the one you're talking about? The one with
No,
Leonardo
there's only
DiCaprio?
one. Yeah, there's only one. Scorsese directed it. Love him. Leo's in it. Margot Robbie. I mean, it's an all-star cast about a pretty shitty human, but just the way the movie's done and the way Scorsese put it together, you really feel like you're along for the ride. So I don't want this to be a mega ad to go watch the movie. 'Cause I would obviously get nothing from it, but yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's a great film, and um, you just have to kind of suck it up when it comes to the terrible human stuff.
Well, that's what I find interesting. Like, cause like me, like I consider myself like a spiritualist, right? You know what I mean? That kind of just label. But at the same time, like when I look at all the things I'm into, a lot of it probably doesn't fit into that box. Like I'm into pretty much everything, like every kind of TV show. Like I play video games. Like I'm into like, it sucks when it came out, but like I was really excited with Cyberpunk 2077. And like
Okay.
I doubt like when you think of like someone like meditating and stuff, you'd think about like, video games, shoot 'em up stuff. But yeah, I find like I don't know, I find like we're going through a resurgence right now where like we're reconfiguring what it means to be spiritual in today's society. Like it doesn't mean that you have to be meditating at the top of a Buddhist monastery to be spiritual. Like spirituality seems today is like right here, right now. Like you look at Joe Rogan, you look at Aubrey Marcus, you look at even Russell Brand, you know what I mean? Like ex Hollywood. And then now he's this friggin' Buddhist master guy with his big beard and everything. And it's just interesting. And I guess the question or the statement in that is just kind of coming from what you just said about Wolf of Wall Street, that yeah, I feel like people have it all wrong. I feel like people think that if you call yourself spiritual, you're perfect and you don't have any vices and you don't have any temptations and that you're boring and that you're not into media. You don't watch movies, you don't play video games. But I find, yeah, nowadays spirituality is almost another word for balance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's the same with it's the same with anything else. Like if we're to only let like the pros engage or whatever that means, then it's not inclusive, and whatever the cause is isn't gonna make it far anyway. So whether that's got to do with hockey or skateboarding or teaching, studying, like you're allowed to not do things at the quote unquote highest level, and there can be totally different versions of what you get peace and love and joy out of.
Yeah, 100%. And I do want to pivot back. First of all, just like before we do all of this, I do want to ask you, how are you feeling about everything? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling good? And do you have any questions or anything?
um I feel good. I mean, look, this is my first time on air, um,
Really?
so to speak. But look, this is like whether it's pre-COVID, whether it's at a party or in a grocery store or at work or on the phone with a client. This is stuff I'm really open with and genuinely love sharing, because if it wasn't for my grandmother, I probably wouldn't have kind of gone down this wonderful rabbit hole. So yeah, anytime I can kind of speak to my experience with spirituality or even any of the other things in my life, I think it's a great opportunity. So thanks for thanks for having me on and having some interest in wanting to hear about it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And actually, that I feel like that's you just kind of gave me the perfect segue because I do like we spoke before this. And one of the things you wanted to go over first was just like a brief overview of yourself and kind of how you got into this. And you just brought up your grandmother. So to everyone watching and listening, Ryan is a practicing medium. I don't know what you would call it, a spiritual medium. And yeah, how about you tell everybody, or just tell me, like how did this happen for you? Because I only know of one other spiritual. I know a psychic medium. One of my mom's best friends, Diane. She's like a second mother to me. I love her. I just spoke with her. Literally, I was just hanging out with her the other week, and so this is very normal for me. But she's had her powers, so to speak, for I think she said since she was a child, like probably 7 years old, 10 years old. Her mother thought that it was the devil, and she kind of made her feel very ashamed of it. And her powers actually went away for I think 20 years. So yeah, just tell me your journey on how did you figure this out about yourself and kind of your journey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, I was really fortunate. Like my grandmother's always like she found spiritualism in I think in her 40s, and she just couldn't consume enough of it. Whether it was Edgar Casey or Silver Birch. I mean, she just took it all in. Read a lot of it, and then she found a spiritualist community here in Toronto, and she attended those. They're called churches. There's when I say church though, there's nothing to kind of do with Catholicism or Catholic or whatever. That's just kind of the standard term, and that's not a knock. That's I'm just laying it out. So yeah, so when I used to spend every Sunday with her, and then I ended up living with her for about a year when I was younger. But she would always kind of speak to us in with that kind of frame of mind, and not that she would speak in riddles or anything, just kind of let us really understand, my brother and I, kind of the holistic nature in life. To give you the best example of this, when I was about 12 years old, she explained to me what transgender meant, and really helped me understand that a person can be born a specific gender but feel a different way and have that other gender spirit within them. She always kind of leaned more on an Indigenous perspective, because while we don't have any blood history, and this is a whole other story, but my grandfather's mother was left on a doorstep of an Indigenous community, and was raised by them, and even though that was not on my grandmother's side, she always kind of thought nature first was always the way. So I was really lucky to kind of have that early influence from her, and I considered myself spiritualist prior to belonging to a community and attending a church, and then around the time I'm 32 now, so when I hit I'd say maybe 23 or 24, to be honest, I was just sick of kind of the 3D world. There was like a boredom in me that I couldn't find anywhere else. And I remember pretty vividly, I was in bed, hungover in the morning. It was kind of my routine: work hard during the week, let loose on the weekends. And I was, I called my grandmother, and I just said to her that I just said, I'm so sick of, just these three dimensions I'm stuck in. And she just said, okay, well, it sounds like you're ready to, step into a spiritualist church. And I hadn't really considered it because, I never kind of slowed down long enough to, kind of reflect in any of that. Like I had done some meditation courses, some transcendental meditation, and I loved it, but it was also just really hard for me to just, sit in that, or if I was feeling anxious, or if I'd had a tough day, it was way easier to have a drink, or like you said, play video games, or just do something really, stimulating. So getting into a spiritualist church really helped me, even on the days, it's kind of like the gym, even on the days you don't want to go, once you get there, you feel great. And, once you leave, I mean, you feel amazing. So it's kind of like a gym for your spirituality. So
Did you go every single day to this church?
Sorry. So my church is, and again, this is all kind of, pre-COVID, but my church is open. It's open Thursdays for like an open development circle. And then Sundays, twice. And then there's classes on Monday, Tuesdays. So when I started going to the Sundays, and the Sundays were similar to what I think, the format of a Catholic church, like somebody gets up there and, they'll do some kind of speech. Now, instead of reading from the Bible, what I really liked about it, it was all like modern day, people experiences. And the mediums will go up and they'll do their work. And for those who don't know mediumship, that's when you're connecting through spirit with, somebody's loved one, or, connection in the past, and delivering that message to somebody here on the earth plane. And, the Sundays were okay. I enjoyed them, but I was still kind of looking for a bit more interaction. And then that's where I just fell in love with the Thursday nights, because we'd get together, you go over kind of house rules for anybody new, and, it's not, scary or intimidating stuff. It's just kind of educate folks what's happening. So you walk in, everybody gets quiet, and then you do a spiritual healing, which has you go to the front of the church, and there's a chair, and somebody, asks if they can, put their hands on your back and your calves, and, just some certain places on your body, and they'll perform a spiritual healing. And during this healing, you'll feel anything from, a chilling cold to a lot of warmth. Sometimes you'll feel yourself, almost leave your body, or you'll feel somebody else kind of come in beside you. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, the easiest thing to understand when you first go is hot and cold. And it's amazing because when you're feeling, this hot and cold, nobody's actually even touching you. So you can really feel spirit work. And then after that, they'll do, your regular announcements. At the end of, the month, we're doing a potluck, or, any of that kind of community stuff, which I didn't, attend at first, given, I felt a lot younger than the rest of the demographic. And then we'd get into an open development circle, which is where kind of the mediumship portion kicked in. So everybody sits in a big circle, and we do a group meditation, and then we work our way through everybody giving a mediumistic message based on their capabilities. So if you're brand new, it'd be as simple as looking at somebody and just giving them an animal, or giving them a color. And, it likely won't make any sense to you at the time, but as you grow, you grow your gift. You get to a point where I'm at now, where I'm able to bring in a person's, relative or friend that's passed on, describe their facial features, and their hair, and, their height, and their personality, and then, provide, a comforting message, in order for them to, just feel that connection with that person.
Yeah, because I love all this shit. I'm someone like my friend Christian. He's a I forget what he calls himself. He's like clairaudient, clairvoyant. He can read the Akashic records and everything. He's been on the podcast twice. But like I love all this kind of stuff. Like I just like ever since I was a kid, like I was always, when I first met Diane, I would ask her like a million questions about nature of reality, time travel, like all these things. And so yeah, I love this stuff. How, like, what do you usually do for people, or what is your favorite, or what are you best at, do you find, with mediumship? Is there certain boxes, like you're good at, like you said, summoning people from the other dimensions or whatever and giving a message? Are there other kind of abilities you have too, or is that the gist of it?
Yeah. So when you're kind of learning, it's not something you can learn in a book, which, for me, and turns out to be, kind of the best way for me to learn. You really have to learn, through, I don't want to say trial and error, because, you have to look at it holistically, and, things happen for a reason, and there's no error aside from, not, giving messages properly. Like there's a lot of, it's very consent based, and you have to be very sensitive towards, for example, if you see that somebody's died of suicide, or if somebody is, overweight, I mean, you figure out, gentler ways to say that. But to kind of answer your question, so your friend's a clairvoyant. I'm more of clairsentience, which
What's that?
means I connect really well through feeling.
Intuitive, like empath?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, so I can connect clairvoyantly as well. But I find, for me, if I'm struggling with, if I can, feel somebody's presence, and I can feel them trying to connect with me, if I'm having a trouble, hearing their name or seeing their face, I can pick up on, their personality, or, what they might have been, some of the feelings that they, feel throughout the majority of their life, whether they were, an anxious person or a very happy person, or something like that. So you kind of learn which way is best for you to deliver messages, and receive messages in order to deliver. But prior to that, the biggest thing is learning what a psychic ability is, and what, is mediumistic, because you can get into a lot of trouble if those if you blur those lines. So a lot of the work that we do early on is to recognize, what is you're picking up psychically, and what you're picking up mediumistically.
So what are the distinctions between the two?
So the easiest way to think about it is, if we're sitting here, and I'm connecting straight to you, that would be a psychic connection, right? I'm getting no help from spirit, no help from any outside source. I'm directly going to you. So I'll give you an example of this. We did an exercise, like, aside from going to, Thursdays and sometimes Sundays, I take, medium classes on the, the Monday and or Tuesdays. It doesn't get this involved on a Thursday night, because it's really designed to be inclusive, and anybody at any level can join. But the best example I can give for the psychic piece is, and I was really new to this, so it was, it kind of just felt like things were just popping in my head. But I was sitting across from an individual I'd never met, and and I was asked to just give them the first thing that, comes to mind. And I said, okay, well, this is weird, but I've got a bowl, excuse me, full of oranges and tomatoes. And I said, I'm just doing this and handing it over to you. And she smiled and she kind of laughed and she said, well, my neighbor came over yesterday and gave me a bowl of, oranges and tomatoes. And I just, that's, it's really important to start getting that confirmation in order to have the confidence to do this. So when I connected that way, it was easy for me to feel that was a psychic connection, because I didn't, like, there was no outside
voices or anything, like almost
yeah,
you were talking to someone.
Yeah, and voices aren't, like, some people hear. I've got, like, one of my my closest medium friends. She gets everything in song, which is really cool. And she knows a lot of music, and certainly a lot of cool music. And like, she's really powerful. She started just slightly before me, and she's like just light years ahead of me. But
why do you think that is? Why do you think she's so ahead of you?
This isn't a natural. It's not a natural gift for me. Like, I'm an empath. I was always very sensitive. Certainly really good on picking up on energy, but in terms of any mediumistic gifts, I've had to really work for it.
Huh.
I've had to really work for it. I'm a total I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a total business junkie. So while I am very sensitive and empathic, my business career has really led me down a path of being very rational and having to think things through, and
left
cross your
brain,
T's and dot your I's. So I think that that had maybe put a few hurdles for my journey in mediumship. And also I'm highly competitive, and that's awesome in the business world. It's awesome in in sports and things like that, but that becomes really challenging with mediumship. I always went in obviously not trying to compete and be the best medium, because it's really not about that. And I knew.
I'm just picturing like an ad, and it's like the best medium. Like that's just not what I think of when I think of spirituality and stuff.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
No, it's the total wrong way to approach it. But for me, because I am so competitive and there's so much drive, if I wasn't getting messages, I'd really beat myself up.
Oh,
I'd get really down on myself. And then you start, second guessing yourself, and you don't allow for the gift to really work.
Yeah, you have to allow. You can't force it. You can't you have to ask for it and then let go of your expectation of even receiving it, in a sense.
Yeah. So that's why my friend is advanced probably so much quicker than I. Like, even my my now fiance, like, when we were, I have her up, every month she'll come and kind of say hi to the gang and participate. And even her, like, she's come significantly less than me and hasn't done classes, but you can just see the gift it's really there.
So you and her both have this gift of mediumship?
Well, we all have this gift. There's no, like, you either have it or you don't. Everybody has it. It's like anything else, that we kind of understand in society. It's some are going to be more talented than others out of the gate. But how interested are you in it, and how much work do you want to put in? I've got significantly more practice and I'm way further ahead than my fiance. But if she were to push herself the way I push myself in this work, she'd be way ahead of me.
Yeah, because like when I think of myself, because this is something that everybody says. You know, Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, my friend Christian, Diane, everyone's like, oh, everybody's psychic, you know, all this kind of stuff, right? And everybody, if like someone like me, like first hears that, I roll my eyes and I go, nah, I'm not psychic. You're psychic. You're the one who can do all this shit. But I definitely have noticed, because I got really into astrology about 4 years ago. And in my astrology chart, there was this like Saturn to my Mercury, which was essentially like a very rigid mind. And I saw that as like a really, you know, thumbs up, right? I was like, okay, awesome. Like I have a very powerful mind. And I remember my mentor, he's like, no, like that gets in the way of your intuition, because my entire life I had like zero intuition, or at least I didn't even know how to pay attention to it. I didn't know what it was like to get clear and quiet enough to feel any impulses whatsoever. Because I was always someone, when I was in the car or just anywhere, I was always in my head. I was always spiraling, kind of ADHD mind, monkey brain. And so for the last kind of 3 or 4 years, I've been really focusing not necessarily on mediumship or psychic ability, but more intuition. I've been really honing in on trying to learn how to pick up signals from the universe, so to speak. And that is something that over the last 3 or 4 years, I have noticed I have developed rapidly. Where now I make most of my decisions through impulse. Like the first tendency will always be my head. I'll always weigh the pros and cons, think it through, and I'll usually come to conclusions. But then I like to almost like try to forget about it, and I go into meditation, and then I usually have my phone beside my meditation table. And then usually most of the scripts for my videos, epiphanies for my videos, my YouTube channel, my branding, my career, all these things, they'll usually come in the form of ideas. And like I've kind of, at this point, I've almost broken down what intuition is to me, at least, where like if I explain it to people, usually I say like intuition is like, people say, oh, you know, God spoke to me. Well, God doesn't speak in English a lot of the time, right? It's not like this voice in your ear that just talks to you like your buddy. If God is out there, God, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, and if it is trying to get a hold of you, usually what it seems to do, in my experience, is set up synchronicities and thoughts that are associated with feelings. So most of the time I notice intuition differs from an ordinary thought. If in the space that I received the thought, I'm very calm, that's usually how I know it's usually something more intuitive. And if it is a very almost like direct, calm, but powerful thought, there's almost an energy associated with it, like in my solar plexus, almost like my stomach or something. I'll just be like, that's it. Like it's like without a shadow of a doubt, it's just this like knowing. And a lot of people say knowing, and you know, people roll their eyes again. But it is that kind of like, there's that kind of feeling, like it's not scary, it's not overly energetic, but it's quiet, still, and there's just this like charge to it. And so where I'm going with this is kind of like what you said about how like everybody is, you know, has abilities. I definitely think that's the case, but definitely it seems that some people are born into this world on this planet with that veil already cracked open to a degree, like people like Diane, and maybe even people like you, more than, you know, someone else. And then there's also Diane, who's more than you, or this friend of yours who thinks in terms of music. Like it seems like, yes, everybody has these gifts, but some people, for some reason, they got kicked in the face with the gift when they're 5 years old or 7 years old or 2 years old. It's like, what is that? Some people just have this natural deep sensitivity, and what I've noticed is a lot of the people that are extremely gifted with this stuff are not analytical. When I think of Diane, when I think of, actually, I guess Christian is an exception. He's quite analytical, but most of the time, a lot of these intuitive types and stuff, they have a difficult time easily breaking down in words what they're thinking and how they're feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So, and sorry if I'm allowed to ask you a question. just because I'm curious. So, when you say, the universe, I wait for the universe to tell me what, it's always interesting to understand, where, like where and how people understand that. So to you, like, what is, the universe speaking to you? Like, what are you able to explain that, at all? Or is it just some other dimension that you can, kind of feel and hear a little bit, but not necessarily point your finger at?
So specifically, like, can you break that down a bit more? Like, specifically, what are you referring
Yeah.
to?
So, on that, point you just had, you mentioned, you kind of wait for the, the universe to, point you in the right direction, or, the universe to, for things to align. Like, what, I guess the question is, like, what is to you that universe?
Okay. So how I define the universe in this context would be this duality, this dimension, call it duality, the 3D realm. When I use the word universe, I think I'm kind of referring to the space that separates the higher dimensions in this dimension. The universe is almost like that membrane that encompasses the ether in this dimension. And it's almost like, the way I see it, the way that kind of is coming to me right now, is like, a lot of people talk about dark energy, and that is like the matter between matter. It's like what people used to view as nothingness. There's no space. Like they say in space there's a vacuum. There's nothing. Where from the research I've done, it would seem that space is actually like charged. It's full of energy, and it's almost like that's a membrane that in a weird way encircles all matter, but also brings matter into being. And it's almost as if there's like a funnel, and that ether is like the spout of the funnel from other dimensions or something. Like, when I think of ideas, like Alan Moore, there's a comic author, Alan Moore, and he believes that all ideas are preformed in another dimension, and that we almost manifest already existing ideas into being. Joe Rogan has mentioned this before, that he felt like his podcast created itself, that he did not create his podcast, that he uncovered his podcast. And in some way, that's how I feel. I feel like I uncover things. And when I speak about synchronicities and the universe like giving me things, I think almost like whatever matter, it's like that ether in between all matter is like this like magnetic and repelling force. It's an attractive force, the law of attraction, and that it is like a gravitational field that kind of slowly and even quickly brings certain things together. So if you want to explain it like a partner, a life partner, everyone's always trying to find their soulmate and everything, right? And they always say like, oh, she'll find a way to you, or you'll find a way together. It's almost like the universe, how it does that is through synchronicities. I almost see people, things, animals, and in all matter as potential synchronicities for the universe, which is this conscious but not like human conscious. It's like it has this whole chessboard, and it's like almost like I almost see it almost mathematical, like beyond actual thinking. It's almost like an automated response. Like if I want to attract a partner, it's like the universe, like, okay, 1 + 1 = 2. Like, it will just naturally gravitate things in place that will lead me to here, to here, to here, to here, and her to here, to here, to here, until we find each other in the center. And I feel like the universe is almost this thing, this ether that is always shifting. It's almost like ice, like a skating rink, how it's always sliding. And there's actually a better example. There's something Do you know those things we used to play with when we were kids? They're like magnetic things, and like you could like erase the magnet, and then you could like draw things almost like it was sand.
Yeah, like an
And
Etch-a-Sketch.
yes, an etch-a-sketch. It's almost like the universe is an etch-a-sketch, and it's like shifting ether all around. And in the shifting ether, the etch-a-sketch things that we're creating is matter, and it's kind of like formulating these whirlpools that like the etch-a-sketch is like erasing and creating, and like kind of bringing everything, shuffling everything like a dice, like five die in a cage. And it's just with every shake, the die get more synchronistic with every shake. I almost see that as as the universe. That's how I kind of perceive it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I really like. I don't from what I know of quantum physics, that certainly aligns. In terms of with quantum physics, like
Quantum physics.
um, they're like everything in our physical space is perfect, right? Like if I don't know if to use a terrible example, if a car crash happens, it's not like particles leak out of the dimension. Like the particles, everything's going to remain perfect in terms of the car pieces are going to end up where they end up, and they're not going to bleed out of the dimension because the physical properties are going to remain perfect. So that's the way you describe that, because I find it really interesting. Like I ask because I don't really have a definition for myself. Yeah, I really like I know it's simple, but I really like the 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah, no, and because I've been thinking about this stuff a lot, man. Especially the last 2 years, I've been obsessive. Like, if you're anything like me, I go through these phases where like I'll go through a hardcore spirituality phase where like all I do is I listen to, Paul Chek or like spiritual podcasts, Luke Story, Josh Trent, Russell Brand, whatever, Abraham Hicks. Then I'll usually go through these phases for like a couple months, and I'll get so sick of spirituality that I need to just like get into anything else, like usually be nutrition or fitness or video games or reading or fiction and YouTube and cryptocurrency and investing. And like, because like you, I'm this like weird amalgamation of right and left hemispheres. Like when I look at my brain, I feel like I'm directly in the center, like where like I'm hyper creative and hyper logical at the same time. And those things a lot of time might seem at odds, but I explain it almost like I feel like the greatest manifestors in history had that right left brain connection, like Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein. I essentially, because I had a podcast with my friend Christian a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about chaos and order and masculine, feminine, and energy, and like even the idea of left right brain. And it's almost like the right brain is chaos. It's feminine. It is just pure potential. But to harness that potential into anything real, you have to have order. And what Nikola Tesla, what Albert Einstein did is they had the analytical skills to define what they wanted to manifest, because then they would actually like cut a cloth out of the tapestry of chaos and bring it into this existence. So I feel like a lot of people, like, because a lot of the time, this, like I said, the spiritual people we think of are very, maybe I would say feminine, but they're very go with the flow. They're very chaotic. They're not very structured or disciplined. And then this is a funny thing too. What do a lot of these people have trouble with? Money. You hear a lot of spiritual people have a lot of trouble with manifesting money and wealth, right? And in many ways, maybe it's that is like the gift of the ordered mind. Maybe that's the gift of consciousness or the masculine, is that it says, okay, I want money. It defines that intention out to the universe so directly, like a pinpoint of energy. It wants one thing, and then it lets it go, and the universe brings it. Where it's almost like the people that are all right brain, they have a harder time defining that pinpoint of what they want. So they end up asking for this massive circumference, but there's so many dueling energies and dueling intentions in that massive ball of intention that it never actually manifests. It's very difficult to actually manifest that one thing that you want. So there's not really a question in that, as much as I kind of find that in my current level of understanding, the relationship between masculine, feminine, and chaos and order, and why we all need to strive to balance those two energies within ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would. My guess on that would be, making money is. I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, but making money is certainly more of a linear process than spiritualism, and kind of learning that process about yourself. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I mean, it's, we try and make it a straight line and follow it. Obviously, there's so many curves and bends and, highs and lows. But I think, with money, there's, more of a goal and an objective, where in spiritualism, that's, kind of further to what I was, speaking of my competitive nature. It doesn't, I can be, at times I used to get really down on myself, but I would never, because there is no, destination, there's a little bit of a nicer place to sit in with that. So that would just be my guess at why, there maybe is a higher connection between, more spiritualist people struggling on the money bit.
And maybe it's also because they're so open that they intuitively understand money is actually not the source of happiness that we all fall prey to believe. Like, there's a sense of, like, a lot of these kinds of people that I talk to, at least, are very balanced, living in the moment. They're not thinking about the future too much. They're not thinking about the past too much. And when I think about people that are, like, real manifestors in a big way, like especially money related, they're constantly thinking about the future, almost to the detriment of their own present, like the detriment of their own families and their relationships. And a lot of them have divorces and stuff. And so, like, for me, since I come from that, like you, hyper competitive, analytical framework, that's my natural way of being. That's how I came into this. And actually, you know what? That's not even fully true either. Because, like, when I talk to my mom, I don't know if you like doing this, but I love asking my mom, like, what I was like when I was 5. I just find it very, because I'm like, how much of me is the exact same? And sure enough, this is interesting. When I think of, like, human beings and our evolution, it's like we're exactly who we are at 5, but, like, wiser. And we have more abilities, but, like, our base essence, our base curiosities, our base temperaments, unless you really get in your own way, seems to be very similar. Like, do you know what you were like when you were 5?
Do I remember what I was like when I was 5?
Yeah. Did you ever ask your parents or anything? Do you have any information on that?
No, I stay away from that, because it usually has something to do with, something happened and I was really sensitive about it. And, it just turns into a bit of a friendly laugh, just in terms of, my sensitivity. So I guess we talk about those stories because they are, really funny. And, fortunately I was, able to grow up and use my sensitivity in more productive ways. But yeah, I totally get that, who we were then, just kind of, we become, big people, and adults, based on that character, because, the playground term, is one I use a lot, whether it's in business or any other kind of, associations or groups, because you just can see it play out.
Yeah, and I know what you mean about sensitivity, because I'm extremely sensitive too. And before, about like a year ago, I think I finally came to terms with my sensitivity like last year, like at like 24 years old. But yeah, it was something I was like deeply ashamed of like my entire life. Like it was something that, like, you know, you see Clint Eastwood movies and you see like, you know, and also I find the thing with sensitivity is like until it's harnessed with confidence and strength, it's like it's so easily seen as like, you know, weak, right?
Yeah.
And you know, even when it comes to relationships and stuff, it's like I was always this sensitive romantic, right? I was always the idealist. I was always kind of, you know, just unwilling to let reality get in the way of my idealism, in a sense. And in many ways, I still strive to do that in balance. Like I still, because I would, the last thing I ever want to be is jaded. Because a lot of people, I think, mistaken realism for jadedness. They just kind of accept life on life's terms rather than, like, if this really is a playground, if this is just a dimension where we're supposed to have fun and grow and create, what essentially what you're doing when you let life define reality for you, you're not even letting the universe define that. You're letting the collective unconscious define that. Because what reality is today, what COVID is, what to the 21st century, what social media is it is our collective unconscious. It is all the things that a majority of the people on this planet are asleep and unconscious, and they let their fears and insecurities and their own childish kind of that sense of I want it now, give it to me now. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to face my fear. I don't want to confront myself. I feel in a sense that's like the creation of social media. Social media is like the entity that manifests from those desires. And so when you say, oh, I've accepted life on life's terms, like, no, you haven't. You've accepted other people's realities on their terms. Right. Yeah, and you've accepted that into yourself. And I think that's kind of what I always believed about myself, but I couldn't articulate until very recently. And I've just always been a dreamer. And I think when people call you a dreamer, it's like, yeah, I dream up a reality I want to create. And that's the one that I will allow to lead my life. Like this podcast, my YouTube channel, these are all my dreams. These are all the things that I wanted for myself. And when other people said, oh, you know, you can't have that, that will never succeed. And I have a lot of people who said, like, it'll never succeed. And now we're at 10,000 subscribers in 6 months. So it's like, it's going extremely well. And that is all about those dreams. And this comes back to what you said about sensitivity, that like you, I am deeply sensitive. And I find that when that sensitivity is not fully understood, you end up being a sponge without the ability to let go of the excess water. And then as you develop, you essentially turn into what Bruce Lee calls, you know, be like water.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
Like be a conduit, because one of the most deeply sensitive people I know on a famous scale is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is extremely sensitive. But when I see him, I see like what we can do with our sensitivity is we can essentially have our sensitivity be like a membrane where energy and things go through, but they aren't caught. Because I feel like that childish sensitivity, it allows to be permeated, but then it catches on to everything. So other people's negativity, their insecurities, their venting, we end up just feeling like shit after 45 minutes, just having people vent to us. And we're like, we need to get the fuck away and just disconnect, because we are just embodying all of other people's emotions. And when you're really sensitive, when you're walking through a school, I'm sure you were like this because of how sensitive you were, you're like, and especially when you're young, you don't know, when you're so sensitive, like the line between other people's energy and your own. So you're walking down this like hallway and you're just bombarded with, you know, depending on how big your high school is, 2,000 unique energies, and you can't quite put the distinction there until you get a bit older. And I think too, just to finish this this tangent off, that like what you are now, and when you learn to access your medium abilities and stuff, and when like part of that is like learning to be the conduit, but like almost be invisible, almost be like translucent, where the energy comes through you. You read the energy, but you don't hold on to it, because in this universe, all things are constantly in motion. And we're almost, when we're sensitive and when we're holding on, we're almost stopping the universe's natural motion. Like the universe is trying to flow through us like everything, but we're like, nope, I'm holding on to that. Like it's going to stay with me. And
Yeah.
maybe that's where all that pain comes from, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, you've got to use, what you might perceive as a weakness, today, once you kind of harness it and really learn how to use that, that actual skill set, it becomes just that.
Yeah. And, yeah, is there any, so back to kind of the distinction between mediumship and psychic ability. So you mentioned that you mentioned when you were talking to that girl.
I've got two phones here, so the other one wasn't on silent.
Oh, good, man. So yeah, you were talking about like when you had the idea of like giving the girl that oranges and tomatoes, that was a psychic connection. So are you a bit psychic too? You're mostly medium, but you're a bit psychic too?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and we all are. It's just that I've, I guess, been able to practice that a bit more. I don't speak as much on, a psychic level. I'll play like little games, with myself, just to kind of, I don't know, for amusement,
like what? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I used to live in a couple of years ago, I used to live in a high-rise condo. And, when I get to my condo from the parking garage, there was, 3 elevators. So I'd always, take a guess at which one, before I press the button, which one's going to show up first. And I had a streak going of 24 times I was right in a row.
Shit.
Yeah. So those are little games I'll play just kind of with myself on the psychic ability. I don't, and obviously this is personal. I don't see any, like, how that'll bring, like me furthering my psychic ability beyond that would bring any, satisfaction, happiness, etc. I mean, what I really like about mediumship is, truly serving, for somebody else, especially if somebody, I mean, I don't recommend, somebody, heavily grieving, to seek out, a mediumistic circle. I think you've got to kind of, get over that, kind of physical loss first. But, it once you're kind of past that stage, I mean, it's really nice to, to hear that folks on the other side are okay, and that, they remember, and, they're still there. So that's really what, the most joy that I'll get out of it. And that's why I focus a lot more on my, my mediumship, and just kind of allow the psychic stuff to, to be there for just, a fun, fun rainy day.
Do you think that you can serve people with psychic ability too?
Honestly, maybe I wouldn't be comfortable.
Just because where your abilities are with it right now?
Yeah, but also I just don't find it as fact-based, being really analytical. And I think, like, the mediums I know, I would say a lot of them are really analytical, versus,
it's like purely intuitive.
Yeah. Because for me, and what I've, learned from some, pretty renowned, mediums, is it's got to be fact-based. like if somebody's, you always have to assume that somebody's coming to this place for the first time. And if you're going to sit there and you're going to, give them a message from, a grandparent or a friend or, an ex-lover, etc., it's vital that the medium provides a whole bunch of data based on this person prior to giving any kind of message to ensure that we're not doing this type of service a discredit. Like if I'm saying that I'm bringing in, your great grandfather, for example, I better, describe quite a bit about the man, both in, physical appearance, maybe some, great grandfather's pretty far stretch, but I better bring some, significant data that you can sit back and be like, okay, this makes sense. I can now accept, a message from this person. So with psychic stuff, I just think it's a little bit, excuse me, and again, this is just my personal opinion, but I just find it a little bit too much of a slippery slope for me to feel comfortable in giving any kind of message unless it's, something, kind of simple and fun.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's just integrity, right? Is like, you know where you are, you have your framework for life, and, at the moment, this is where you are. A friend of mine who's a psychic medium is actually doing some experiments with Stanford, with a scientist by the name of Dr. William Tiller. I think it's Stanford, or it's George Brown, one of those universities, but they're doing a lot of I think they call them psi experiments, psychic, I don't know. But anyway, so she's doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And I do think that could in turn have a very positive effect, because I see right now, it seems like more than ever, astrology, people are interested in astrology. I feel like people are opening up to more things. For example, when I was really into conspiracy theories like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I'd be at work and I'd talk about them with coworkers and people would look at me like I'm nuts, right? And fast forward to 2020, and they go, tell me more about that. Like, it seems like where maybe 1% of people would be even open to it 10 years ago, now it's like 50% of people are open to it, and like 50% of people are closed. But like, that's a crazy jump. And, along with conspiracy theories and stuff, because it's kind of just like, it's what's niche right now is to question the government and banks and stuff for good reason. But I feel on the toe end of that too is people are opening up to just different ways of thinking. And where before it used to be like, yeah, that's crazy. Psychics, mediums, psychedelics, that's crazy stuff. And then lo and behold, Joe Rogan starts making DMT famous, right? And now everyone is like, want to do DMT, and like, oh my God, you've done DMT. Now it's like a badge of honor rather than like, you're a crazy person, stay away from me. Now it's cool, right? It's in the now. People are going to Peru to do ayahuasca ceremonies and stuff in the rainforest. And I'm sure with that becoming vogue, I believe we're just around the corner from mediumship, psychic stuff. I feel that might start to trickle in slowly. And then, just like anything, though, the first wave of that is going to be for all the wrong reasons. It's like when people now are trying to party with DMT or party with ayahuasca or party with shrooms. They're going to be parlor tricks like, oh, dude, like, can you read my aura? Or can you talk to my grandfather? But in a very, a place of non-integrity. But then as that wave comes over, just like everything in life, the next wave will be after that's broken the mainstream, as that's broken in, now you'll have the people that actually have the right intentions who actually want to know about this stuff. So my question in all of this is, I guess, first of all, do you believe that's true? And secondly, if that is going to happen, do you think you might be in a position in the future where you might want to help facilitate that happening?
Um, yeah, so I'll answer your questions in reverse order. Um, yeah, I mean, of course, I'd love to, further the further spiritualism in modern society. I mean, I get a lot of benefit as being someone who provides that value, and there's a lot of people who um, who get a lot of relief for it. Plus, I think just the concept of the reason I got into it, like just kind of allowing folks to understand that there's a little bit more than what we see, like that whole, me kind of breaking out of like that 3D realm. So for sure. Now for me, I'd want to do it in ways like, I'm doing today, where it's, strictly educational. I'm never interested in doing it any other than a free service. I just it's just totally like a passion project for me, and a hobby. And then to answer your first question, I hope so. I hope it becomes more mainstream. I mean, I'm a big fan of psilocybin, and have been been using mushrooms, since my college days. Of course, it, started out of a, more of a party side phenomenon, but I, now I, do it in a way to kind of, make new connections and, self-reflect, and if you're doing it responsibly, it can still be in a, an upbeat, not like, rock on party, but a social event, in my mind. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it kind of get where, psilocybin is now, because, now there's like decriminalization, and, I know that there doesn't have to be that for, mediumship to take its way, because it's not a drug. But even if that sheds even more light on meditation. I mean, meditation's getting a ton of spotlight now, and if that provides even more, then that would be excellent, because the benefits of us looking inward a bit more, I think would be beneficial. I mean, one of my favorite phrases, if you don't go within, you'll always go without. And I feel like our society is continuing to, move in that outward direction, whether it's, spending hours on Instagram, or just setting ourselves in front of the TV, and I'm not dishing any shame. I mean, I've done this too, and have days where I do that. So, but it's, for me, it's about acknowledging it, being honest about it, and then, setting myself up to, to make those changes and not get so sucked in.
Thank you for making this segue really seamless. But
yeah, I read my notes beforehand.
But yeah, because I did want to talk about, because this is something I'm super passionate about, is this there's this world we're creating. Because social media, I feel, it can do so much good. For example, without social media, I guess this, okay. So, where we are with COVID and 2020, and, all these lockdowns, despite your perspective on them, I feel like social media, in the negative, yes, it can create addiction, it can create insecurities, it can create false realities, it can create false, wants, right? But in the opposite, it can connect people if used correctly. It can bring people together. It can pass information instantaneously. It allows for a new media source. social media and in turns podcasting and YouTube are the reason why you don't need to get your news from Fox News and CNN now, right? It's like it used to be there were gatekeepers of knowledge and you had to seek out a mentor, and like that was a difficult thing because again, you can't just go on the internet and type in spiritual mentors or ayahuasca ceremony or ayahuasca shaman. You'd have to, sure, the universe would find a way of bringing you to where you need to go. But the cool thing about our world nowadays is before, let's say out of 100% of people, 1% were awake or ready to be awakened. They would be the people that the universe would bring into contact with all this shit, right? Nowadays, though, I feel that, maybe 25% of people are awake or ready to be awakened, or maybe even just less. But with the power of social media and the power of permeating culture, we like are rapidly waking people up. Even like, the effect of Joe Rogan or the effect of different kind of almost these mainstream spiritualists like JP Sears or just these comedians that kind of flirt with these topics. I feel like without social media, you can't like wake up so many people like that. Like now we live in a world where in the last year or two, I feel like there's been this massive, maybe not awakening yet, but the start of that process just organically through like, you send a video to someone on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, or YouTube, and we're allowing culture to be changed from the inside out rapidly in a way that wasn't possible before in a time where we need to be doing this. Because, in my personal perspective, not to get overly political, I don't like how the world is choosing to deal with, let's say, COVID or whatever, right? And now we have with social media the ability to contest that, to protest, to sign petitions and everything. And those things are not perfect. So you can't always change just through a petition. But at least I've noticed so many people that were on the fence or were completely asleep are now at least asking questions because of social media. So my point in all of this is, like anything, everything is a tool, it seems, and it's up to us how we utilize that tool. So, yeah, what is your perspective on the totality of social media?
I think it's very similar to alcohol. I think it's very similar to, processed food. It's making a lot of things easier. It might be, a lot easier for, a human to ask another human to dance, thanks to alcohol. It's a lot easier to, fill up your stomach, during a busy day, going to, a quick service restaurant. But it's not the healthiest choice for you. So, yeah, I agree. I use Instagram. I enjoy it. I also, set a cap for myself to ensure that I'm aware of how much I'm spending on it because I think, it's really important for us to be responsible in regards to, our mental health. Spending too much time on there because it is, for the most part, a highlight reel. Is really dangerous, especially on, younger people. I wasn't, when Instagram came around, I was, already in, my adulthood, so I didn't get to see that. But, hearing stories, watching stories, reading stuff, there's a lot of danger there. So, but this is where we're always going to kind of land, I think, with, a capitalistic society, right? When something gets monetized and then the algorithms become more important than anything else. And not that I'm, against or super against, I should say, capitalism, because, I kind of look around and I'm not sure I'm not sure how else you do it. So I chalk it up to humans are flawed, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Um, and to work towards being as responsible as I can be, and the help I can kind of do in that sphere as well is how I'm able to kind of just be okay with some of the flaws in our society, and some of the the flaws within our species.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. Like, this is something I try to do with all my content is just try to be as open and vulnerable and human as possible. Like, I just made a celebratory video for hitting 10,000. And in that video, I actually, rather than just celebrating, I went over the massive depression I had for the last 2 months as a result of pressure and negativity, and in terms of positivity too. But like, because that's something that I realized I knew I had to do. Because in the beginning of this thing, it was very positive, obviously. It actually was way more positive than it was negative. And then, you get the ego trip as you grow, and then people start to say they like you so much. And that is positive. But I feel if you have insecurities, you can get taken away, because you start to use that validation and make yourself feel better about how you really feel. And when I kind of got around here, though, I was like, you know what? I feel like this is almost like some test, in a sense, where I'm like, I need to maintain my authenticity. And so rather than doing the usual, thanks guys, you're awesome, thanks for getting to 10K, let's keep going to 25K, I almost did like a meditation, or I opened up about, my own mental health struggles and my past and the present and everything. And I realized that is just like why I'm doing it. Even on a higher level, I feel like even if I'm not aware of that, kind of like when Joe Rogan says the podcast uncovered itself, I feel like in many ways I was called to this. Obviously through reincarnation, through astrology, I was meant to be in some position of public sphere where I'm helping people and entertaining people at the same time. I feel like if I was to summarize the theme of Anton's life in this go round, it's probably something to do with blending entertainment and raising consciousness. That's kind of where I feel like I sit, because I would never want to be a politician, because there's just not enough fun. And at the end of the day, I am someone who, you could call me inherently lazy, but I like to have a good time. Like, I like enjoying life. I like smiling. I like laughing. I like connecting. I like, when I think of my future, I'm, living probably in Costa Rica or Thailand with a couple kids and, my partner or whatever, whoever that is. And like, I'm enjoying my life, and like, that's in balance. Like, I'm working, 4 days a week, probably 5 hours, and then spending the rest of the time with my family, my friends, my kids, myself, and then taking 3 days off. Like, I've already created like the structure of my life for like, 1 day a week, just myself time. Another day is like, date night, hang out with the partner, and then others like, friends and family and whatever. So like, I realize I'm just not built as a go burnout kind of person. Maybe I have that stamina, but honestly, I get very miserable if I'm worked like a workhorse. Because I already noticed with this thing, trying to work at Good Life Fitness and this at the same time, I got severely burnt out to the point where I would get like depressed and anxious just thinking about recording a video. Like, it was like I would just wake up in bed and be like, fuck, I do not want to get in front of that camera, because I don't want to have to lie about how I feel and put on a smile and pretend like everything is okay, when really like I'm kind of freaking out and all these voices in my head are going fucking chaotic. And so I don't even know how I got on this, but yeah, I'm someone like I need balance in my life, and I definitely get that. Oh, this is why I went into this. We're talking about kind of the fake lifestyles of social media and everything. And I feel like if we do want to improve our culture and have a better world, I feel like one of the first things we have to do, that's just my perspective on it, but and everyone talks about mental health stigmas and, changing the stigma, ending the stigma. And I agree with that. I want, rather than, like you said, the Instagram highlight reel being reality and being the benchmark for how we're all supposed to feel, I'd rather have the space in the middle be the benchmark, because life is highs and lows. It's not just lows and it's not just highs. It's that kind of striding of that balance. And this is why I brought into my content, but with my content, I'm trying to make that the reality, the highs and the lows. My life rocks a lot of the time, and it sucks sometimes too. And I feel like if we all realize that life is this ebb and flow, then I feel like, yeah, it'd be a lot healthier for us. Like you said, the kids too, that just get these, like, I'm so happy I was not born 10 years earlier and had Instagram, Facebook, and Instagram be the benchmark for what a human being is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I really applaud you in that, because it's not easy to do. It's not kind of the sexy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And I think specifically for your channel where you dive into all this stuff, if you didn't go there, it would be lacking an authenticity. So, yeah, I think you're doing it the right way. And just a comment on you mentioning, you're trying to figure out like how you're programmed and how you work best. I think that's great. I also just want to insert, Bruce Lee here, to let you know that, things are going to evolve in a bunch of different ways, and just be like water and adapt to it. I mean, this thing, could, blow up beyond what it has already, and it could demand, a 60-hour week. But you know what, maybe for a few years, that's something you're able to take on because you get the satisfaction out of the people you're helping, entertaining, etc. So, I love that you're figuring out how you work, because I think that's really important for all of us to do. And just know, it can always, change in other great ways too.
Oh, 100%, man. And it's happened so many times. There's so many like visualizations for my future that's just been like fucking shattered. And like you have to kind of adapt. And yeah, like I think about these things like, my future and everything. I see them as intentions more than goals, more than set in stone. Like if the universe, like I was listening to a podcast today. Do you know Paul Chek? I mentioned him before in this podcast. Okay. He's a spiritual teacher. He has his own institute, the Chek Institute. But anyway, he said he's like the biggest cosmic joke is like believing you can tell the universe what you want. And he's like, the universe always has the highest plan in mind. And life is best when you kind of, like you said, you're water, and it's a co-creation, I guess, of the universe, where like we were talking about earlier, if you don't have any intention, actually, I don't even know how that would be, because that's not who I am. I'm someone, whether I like it or not, I naturally have intentions and expectations for everything. Ever since I was a kid, I've been a very intentional human being. So I don't even know what it would be like to literally let go of intention. But like definitely like part of my depression for the last 2 months was primarily expectations. It was having goals that I would meet, blow past, and then not meet, and then feeling like I was a failure for smashing through 4 and not hitting the 5th. And then I remember I was just, at the gym one day, and kind of a friend of mine, Pat, he's like I think he's in his 40s or 50s. And he's like, how you doing, man? Like, the channel's doing awesome. I was like, yeah. And then like, he's like, what's up? Like, I can sense something's up. And I was like, man, like, I didn't hit my recent goal. And he's like, so what? He's like, And he's like, I knew that would happen to you because when I met him, I was like, hey, Pat, I'm Anton. I'm going to smash 1,000 subscribers by this day, and then 2,500, 5,000, 10,000. And he's like, I nodded. And I was like, honestly, man, like, bravo to you for having such a direction. But he's like, I knew the moment you didn't reach it, it would devastate you. And I was like, oh yeah, like it was crushing. It was like, dude, it was so weird, man, because it just kind of goes with life. Like when you're flying high, a lot of the time when you dip low, you don't remember flying high. There's not that kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just experiencing the low, I'll get back up there. You're like, life is terrible. Life is always going to be terrible. Like you don't even remember the highs. And yeah, in that, like I was like, I didn't hit this goal. And yeah, man, it was crazy. I just felt like such a failure. Like I was like, I'm worthless. People don't care about the content anymore. And that was literally just a month ago. That was a month ago. And this month was such a learning experience of just learning, like you said, like Bruce Lee said, to like, yeah, have your intentions. They kind of help, in a sense, make life exciting. And you can maybe speed up some processes by sending some energy in a direction. But ultimately, your life is at the mercy of the universe, in a sense. It's almost like some people talk about soul contracts and that, you picked this life. So there's like I guess a sense that like your core essence knows the path forward, and what you're hoping to do is just align yourself with your core essence. And the moment you try to move faster than your essence, or if you're oblivious to your essence, that's where you get hurt with your expectations, because your expectations are not aligned with what you came here to accomplish in this life. So that's an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and hey, look, maybe maybe I'll live up to a Michael Scott famous quote. I mean, he certainly stole the Wayne Gretzky. So yeah, maybe we leave here today where be like water, dash Bruce Lee, dash Ryan Hanna. If I can sneak that in there.
Honestly, 100%, bro. And we're gonna pivot into the final questions. Is there anything you want to touch on before we pivot into the last 10 minutes?
No, I mean, honestly, I really want to, again, just, applaud you, congratulate you on, getting to where you're at. I think it's, I really do think it's impressive. Keep your goals high, and keep, the compassion towards yourself even higher. And that way, you'll hit your goals, and maybe feel a bit better about yourself during the low times as well, because the low times are coming no matter what.
Ryan Hanna 2020, people. There's your quote. But all right, so I have a few questions here. If you looked over you probably already know. But what 3 people or teachers have influenced you the most?
Yeah, number 1 slot, my grandmother for sure. Number 2, I had a geography teacher in high school. I can't remember her name, but I would get, I was kind of a class clown type. So, I brought a lot of humor on myself, and, certainly kept things really light. Whether this was a way of, masking, being sensitive in my early years, or just, that's the value I thought I provided at the time. But, not a lot of folks took me super seriously, and I take responsibility for that. But I had a teacher that, I had this idea in class, and I can't remember what the idea was. And I, remember folks were laughing, and I'm the type that, I'm able to laugh along with it. But the teacher just said to me, like, this human being is, gonna, do something pretty special with his creativity. And I'm certainly not where, where the final goal is, but, I've been an entrepreneur for almost my entire business life and self-sufficient, and, have, created some pretty interesting things, that I and the people around me think. So, just that bit of confidence, I thought was really important for her. And I still kind of think about it and really appreciate it. And then the third one, I would say is, my mom, and she, is, just an absolute, warrior. Like, she can, work 10 hours a day. She can, take care of her ailing mother. She can, deal with my shit and my brother's shit, and still, have time to, to cook dinner, kind of thing. So, I just, whenever I'm in the trenches and I've, got to, work all night or get something done, I just kind of think about, the power she has, and know that, that I can, harness some of that through, a bit of genetics, and I can get through as well.
Honestly, man, that's beautiful. I'd say my mom is definitely one of my top three too. I'm a mama's by 100%. But secondly, this actually, you tied this in really well. Because I'm very curious too. Because when you said your teacher said that, watch out for this man, he's going far, he's going to use his creativity for big things. What is, if you even have one, and if you don't, we can do it here, but what's your intention for the next 5 years?
No, I'm pretty, so, to continue to be, a good partner, a good, son, good brother, and just, good person, like continually try and, catch myself when I've, operated out of integrity, and try and clean that up, whether with it's, hurting somebody's feelings, obviously by mistake, or, anything in that regard. So to kind of continue that path, to continue, holding relationships, of the highest value. And then, business wise, I've, my latest venture, that's, a couple years old, is, I started, with a co-founder, an environmentally responsible, tattoo supply company. And we're on a mission to replace all, petroleum plastics with biodegradable, plant-based ones. We've done a really good job so far. So my goal is to, continue that, make it more than just tattoo supplies, and cover a lot of industries, and really, transform the way, folks look at plastic, and understand there's other options, and provide those other options, so that, we're, this planet becomes, a little more sustainable.
Beautiful. And I guess this summarizes part of that too. But if people want to get in contact with you, where can they find you? Kind of your main social media links.
Yeah, I have Instagram, but I'm not like overly, active on there. I mean, but if somebody wanted to try me there, my personal Instagram is, at the Rias Guy. And then, the better way to get in touch with me would be, probably on my LinkedIn. So if you would just Google Ryan, and then one of my two companies, so Ryan Hanna, Good Judy Inc., or Ryan Hanna Pharmacy Media Network, all pop up, and then you can, send a message.
What about the Hanna collection? What is that?
Yeah, so the Hanna collection, honestly, is just kind of a holding company I have, that I, I'll start projects with. And then, so technically I have three companies, but the Hanna collection is just kind of, I'll start something with, and then if it needs to be blown into, a full-fledged company, I'll do that. But it's always nice to have a base, and have, a bit of a foundation before I start something if I don't want it to get into my other firms.
Okay.
So think of it as like a consulting company at this stage.
Okay, cool. And to everyone watching and listening, if you have any questions for myself or for Ryan, if you're on YouTube, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you're anywhere else, you cannot do that because there's no comment section. But other than that, thank you so much for coming on today, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Congrats on the success, and can't wait to watch you continue to grow.
Awesome, man. Thank you. And again, to everyone watching and listening, thank you for tuning in to the show today. And I'll see you again on the next one. I love you guys. Peace.